Hello everyone and welcome back to JBC English Learning Academy. I'm Elena, your host, and today we are going deeper into the art of truly masterful English communication than ever before. You already know that connecting words are the secret to fluency, and we have previously covered 75 essential connectors to help you flow. But today, we are taking a massive leap forward. We are exploring over 100 advanced English transition phrases along with the rules of how to use them. These are not just simple connectors. They are the sophisticated phrases that master storytellers, debaters, and native speakers use to weave intricate arguments, tell compelling stories, and express nuanced opinions. But today we are not just learning what they mean. We are learning how and when to use them to sound professional, academic, or polite. These phrases will act as the polish on your English, turning simple sentences into persuasive and elegant communication. Whether you are telling a story to friends, giving a presentation at work, or writing an IELTS or TOEFL essay, these transitions will guide your listener through your thoughts with absolute clarity. They will help you build ideas, show similarities with style, explain consequences with precision, and give your opinions the weight they deserve. Mastering this next level of vocabulary will help you structure your narratives like a pro, so your stories are always engaging and easy to follow. It will allow you to argue logically using phrases that introduce evidence and consequences seamlessly. You will sound more persuasive and authoritative as these phrases carry a tone of intelligence and certainty. And ultimately, you will feel a sense of command over the language, knowing you have the right tool for every single conversational situation. Before we dive into these advanced linguistic tools, if you haven't already, please remember to subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon. It helps us grow and ensures you never miss a lesson that could transform your English. All right, are you ready? Let's unlock these powerful transition phrases together. Let's begin with part 1, which focuses on connectors for building and expanding ideas. This category is all about taking a single idea and building it up, adding layers, or expanding the scope of what you are saying. You know, and also, but these phrases allow you to introduce new points with more sophistication and logical weight. First, let's look at the phrase "to say the least." This is a fantastic phrase used for understatement. You use it when you want to minimize the description of something, often implying that the reality is actually much stronger or more intense than your words suggest. A teacher's tip for this one: it is great for sarcasm or irony, and it is generally considered informal. For example, you could say, the service at the restaurant was slow to say the least, which implies it was terrible, perhaps the worst you have ever experienced. Let's practice. Say it with me. The movie was confusing to say the least. Now your turn. The traffic was terrible to say the least. Next up is the phrase "let alone." This is used to emphasize that a statement is even more true or applicable in a more extreme case. It connects a negative statement to an even more unlikely possibility and essentially means and certainly not. A teacher's note here is that you use this to emphasize a gap in ability or logic. For instance, you might say, I can't afford a bicycle, let alone a car. If a bike is too expensive, a car is impossible. Can you say this? She can't swim, let alone dive. Your turn. I didn't understand the question, let alone the answer. Then we have the phrase apart from that. This is a clean conversational way to introduce an additional point or a separate topic after you have finished discussing something else. It acts as a pivot, signaling that you are moving to a different but related aspect of the situation. It is excellent for switching subjects in a meeting without sounding rude. For example, the hotel room was clean and comfortable. Apart from that, the location was perfect. Let's try this together. The food was great. Apart from that, the music was lovely. Now you try. The salary is good. Apart from that, the office is very close to my house. Moving on, consider on a related note. This is an excellent transition for moving from one topic to another that is connected or associated with it. It helps you maintain flow in a conversation or presentation without an abrupt jump, showing your listener that your thoughts are organized and linked. For instance, we have increased our sales. On a related note, customer satisfaction has also risen. Repeat after me. The project is on schedule. On a related note, we are under budget. Great job. Now you try. He is a great musician. On a related note, his sister is a singer. Next is the phrase, speaking of which. This is a very natural conversational phrase used to bring up a topic that is connected to something just mentioned. Often when something reminds you of something else, it makes you sound attentive and engaged. For example, I just saw Sarah in the hallway. Speaking of which, did you know she is moving to New York? Say it with me. I watched that documentary last night. Speaking of which, the director was interviewed today. Now I'm reading a book about cooking. Speaking of which, I need to buy ingredients for dinner. Then we have with regard to. This is a more formal professional phrase used to introduce a specific topic or subject you want to discuss, essentially meaning concerning or about. It is very common in business emails or meetings to sound professional and organized. Use this instead of just saying about to sound much more competent. For example, with regard to your proposal, we have a few questions. Let's practice its professional tone. Repeat after me. With regard to the application, we need more information. Now, you addressing a problem. With regard to the noise complaint, we are looking into it. Another useful phrase is the structure. Not only, but also. This is a classic correlative conjunction used to emphasize that two things are true, adding weight and balance to your statement. A teacher's note here is to make sure you keep the grammar parallel. For example, you should say, he is not only intelligent, but also very kind, keeping the adjectives consistent. Let's practice. She is not only a talented writer, but also a skilled speaker. Your turn. Describing a city. The city is not only historic, but also very modern. Finally, for this section, we have another key point to consider. This phrase is excellent for presentations or essays. When you want to introduce a new, important argument, signaling to the listener that a significant point is coming and adding structure to your speech. For example, we must reduce costs. Another key point to consider is employee morale. Say it with me. The plan is risky. Another key point to consider is the potential reward. Now you listing reasons to move. The rent is high. Another key point to consider is the commute. Let's add a few more to this section to expand your toolkit even further. Consider. Furthermore. This is a formal phrase that implies you are adding a point that reinforces the previous one with more weight. For example, the plan is safe. Furthermore, it is cheap. Repeat after me. The data is accurate. Furthermore, it is comprehensive. Next is moreover. This is similar to furthermore, but often introduces a more important reason than the one before. For example, he is rude. Moreover, he is dishonest. Say it with me. The job is boring. Moreover, the pay is low. Then we have in addition to. This is a direct replacement for besides or and. Also sounding a bit smoother. For example, in addition to English, he speaks Spanish. Try this. In addition to the salary, she gets a bonus. We also have besides. While simple, don't overuse it as in addition to often. Sounds smarter. For example, besides the cost, it takes too much time. Repeat after me. Besides being late, he was unprepared. Finally, what is more? This is a slightly emphatic way to introduce a benefit or a stronger point. For example, it is cheap. What is more, it is durable. Say it with me. The car is fast. What is more, it is safe. Now, let's move to part 2. Connectors for similarity and comparison. This section explores phrases that help you show how things are alike or how they compare. Moving beyond simple like or same allows you to draw sophisticated parallels and contrasts, which is essential for academic or professional English. First, consider likewise. This is a formal connector meaning in the same way or similarly, and it shows that the action or feeling you are about to describe corresponds to what was just said. It creates a sense of balance and reciprocity. For instance, I promised to help him and he promised to help me. Likewise. Repeat after me. You need to practice daily. Likewise, you must review your notes. Now you try. Agreeing with a policy. The manager supports the new policy. Likewise, the staff approves. Next is in much the same way. This phrase is used to highlight a strong similarity between two different actions or situations, emphasizing the parallel nature of the comparison. It is very useful for explaining a complex idea by comparing it to a simple one. For example, a captain leads a team in much the same way a parent guides a family. Say it with me. The heart pumps blood through the body. In much the same way, the engine moves fuel through a car. Now you try comparing habits. He saves money for his future. In much the same way, she invests in her education. Then correspondingly, this is a slightly more formal word that means in a way that is connected or appropriate to what has just been mentioned, showing a relationship of change or matching status. It implies that as one thing changes, the other changes in sync. For example, the company expanded its operations and correspondingly its profits increased. Try this. The temperature dropped and correspondingly the heating turned on. Now you try explaining a salary. Her responsibilities grew. Correspondingly, her salary was raised. Moving on. Equally, this word is used to introduce a point that has the same importance or validity as the one just mentioned, creating a sense of balance and fairness in your argument. For instance, the movie was visually stunning. Equally, the soundtrack was incredible. Repeat after me. Respect is important in a relationship. Equally, trust is essential. Now you try balancing work and life. Hard work is necessary for success. Equally, rest is important for health. Next is along the same lines. This idiomatic phrase means similarly or in a similar direction, suggesting that the next point follows the same logic or theme as the previous one. It is very useful for keeping a train of thought going. For example, the first proposal focused on eco-friendly materials. Along the same lines, the second proposal suggests using renewable energy. Say it with me. She argued for better health care. Along the same lines, she requested more funding for hospitals. Now you try continuing a topic about technology. The new phone is faster. Along the same lines, the battery lasts longer. Then we have the structure. Just as so, too. This is a beautiful structure used to draw a direct comparison between two things, often emphasizing that if one is true, the other must also be true. It has a slightly literary or formal feel that sounds very educated. For example, just as the sun rises in the east, so too does it set in the west. Repeat after me. Just as a captain steers the ship, so too does a CEO lead the company. Now you try comparing learning skills. Just as you practice piano to get better, so too must you practice English. Finally, for this group, comparable to. This phrase is used to assert that two things are similar in quality, size, or amount. And it is a great way to give a frame of reference to help someone understand the scale of something. For instance, the size of the country is comparable to that of Texas. Let's practice. The cost of living here is comparable to that in New York. Now, you try comparing performances. Her results are comparable to the top students in the class. Let's add a few more comparison tools. Consider snorts. In contrast, this is stronger than but is used to show a clear difference. For example, the old system was slow. In contrast, the new one is fast. Say it with me. City life is busy. In contrast, rural life is relaxed. Next is conversely. This is a formal way of saying on the opposite hand, often used to show an opposite result. For example, poverty is associated with crime. Conversely, wealth does not always mean safety. Repeat after me. He is very fit. Conversely, his brother is unhealthy. Then unlike this is a direct efficient way to show difference. For example, unlike my brother, I enjoy cooking. Try this. Unlike the previous model, this one is electric. Now let's move to part 3. Connectors for consequence and purpose. This section is about logic. We will look at phrases that explain why things happen or what they happen for, helping you create a tight logical narrative that is easy to follow. First, let's explore hence. This is a single, powerful word meaning as a result or for this reason. It is slightly formal and very efficient, making you sound concise and intelligent. A teacher's tip is that you should not use hence in casual text messages to friends as it sounds stiff. Use it in writing or speeches. For example, he was late, hence he missed the introduction. Let's practice. The roads are icy, hence driving is dangerous. Now you try explaining a decision. We ran out of time. Hence, we will continue tomorrow. Next up is thus. This is very similar to hence and means therefore or in this manner, often used to summarize a result or a conclusion drawn from evidence. For instance, the cost of materials rose, thus the price of the product increased. Say it with me. There was no evidence, thus the case was dismissed. Now you try explaining a result. He studied hard, thus he passed with high marks. Then accordingly. This word means in accordance with or consequently suggesting that an action was taken as a logical response to a previous situation. It implies a sense of following the rules of the situation. For example, the weather was terrible. Accordingly, we canceled the picnic. Repeat after me. The budget was cut. Accordingly, we reduced our spending. Now, you try adjusting a plan. The demand is low. Accordingly, production will slow down. Moving on. For this reason. This phrase is a clear, straightforward way to introduce the cause or justification for something. It is less formal than hence, but very effective in explaining your motives. For instance, he is the most experienced candidate. For this reason, we hired him. Let's try this. The product is unique. For this reason, it sells well. Now, you try explaining a choice. She loves animals. For this reason, she became a vet. Next is with this in mind. This is a thoughtful phrase used to introduce a decision or action that considers the facts you just mentioned. Meaning considering this, it shows you are thinking logically and planning ahead. For example, the deadline is tight. With this in mind, we should start working immediately. Say it with me. The audience is young. With this in mind, we should use simple language. Now, you try planning a gift. She loves reading. With this in mind, I bought her a book. Then owing to This phrase means because of or due to, and it is often used to explain the cause of a situation, especially when the cause is external or somewhat out of one's control. For example, the match was canceled owing to the heavy rain. Repeat after me. The flight was delayed owing to technical issues. Now you try. Explaining a success. The team succeeded owing to their hard work. Another useful connector is due to the fact that this is a more verbose way of saying because, but it is very useful when you want to be precise and formal, especially in writing or formal speeches. For example, he was late due to the fact that his car broke down. Let's practice. We stayed inside due to the fact that it was cold. Now you try explaining a change. The price increased due to the fact that materials are scarce. Finally, as a direct consequence. This phrase emphasizes that the result happened directly and unavoidably because of the cause, strengthening the link between cause and effect. For instance, many people lost their jobs as a direct consequence of the economic crisis. Say it with me. Sales dropped as a direct consequence of the bad reviews. Now you try explaining a benefit. Her confidence grew as a direct consequence of her practice. Let's expand this category further. Consider as a result. This is a very common safe alternative to hence. For example, it rained. As a result, we stayed inside. Repeat after me. He broke his leg. As a result, he couldn't run. Next is therefore. This is very formal and definitive. For example, he is young, therefore he has time to learn. Try this. The evidence was weak. Therefore the case failed. Then leading to this describes the action causing the result. For example, the heavy rain led to flooding. Say it with me. Poor management led to the company's failure. Now, part 4, connectors for exemplifying and illustrating. To make your argument strong, you often need to give examples. These phrases help you introduce proof, illustrations, or specific instances in a way that sounds professional and clear. First, consider, for instance. This is a very common and versatile phrase used to introduce a specific example that clarifies a general statement, and it is slightly more formal than just saying, for example. For instance, many fruits are high in vitamin C. For instance, oranges and kiwis. Let's practice. You can use many spices. For instance, basil and oregano. Now you try giving examples of exercises. Cardio is good for your heart. For instance, running and swimming. Next, to illustrate. This phrase is slightly more formal than for instance and is used to show or explain something more clearly, often with a story or a detailed example. It paints a picture for the listener. For example, the software is user-friendly. 2. Illustrate, you can drag and drop files with one click. Say it with me. The climate is changing. To illustrate, winters are getting warmer. Now you try explaining a problem. Customer service is declining. To illustrate, wait times have doubled. Then a case in point. This idiom is used to introduce a specific example that perfectly proves the point you just made, giving your argument strong evidence. For instance, many people are addicted to their phones. A case in point is my brother who never looks up from his screen. Repeat after me. The team has young talent. A case in point is our new striker who scored twice. Now you try proving a point about kindness. Strangers can be helpful. A case in point was the man who helped me change my tire. Moving on to give you an idea. This is a conversational phrase used to help someone understand the scale or extent of something by providing an approximation or example, helping the listener visualize the magnitude. For example, the project is huge. To give you an idea, it took 3 years just to plan. Let's try this. The mountain is high. To give you an idea, it takes 2 days to climb. Now you try describing a busy day. I was busy yesterday. To give you an idea, I attended 5 meetings. Next, consider the example of this phrase is a direct and clear way to ask your listener to think about a specific instance to support your argument, which is very common in presentations to guide the audience's thinking. For instance, innovation drives growth. Consider the example of Apple, which revolutionized the phone industry. Say it with me. Pollution affects wildlife. Consider the example of the polar bear losing its habitat. Now you try supporting an argument about reading. Reading expands your mind. Consider the example of To Kill a Mockingbird. Then chiefly. This word means mainly or principally and is often used to introduce the most important examples or reasons in a list, focusing the listener's attention on the main thing. For example, the team succeeded chiefly due to their strong defense. Repeat after me. The diet is healthy chiefly because it includes many vegetables. Now you try explaining why you like a movie. The movie was popular chiefly because of its ending. Another useful phrase is take for example. This is a very active and clear way to introduce a specific instance to prove a point sounding engaging. For instance, some animals are very intelligent. Take dolphins, for example. They can learn complex tricks. Let's practice. English is useful. Take business, for example. It is the global language. Now you try citing a problem. Traffic is bad. Take the morning rush hour, for example. Finally, for this section, primarily, this word means for the most part or mainly, highlighting the dominant reason or example, though acknowledging there might be others. For example, I chose this car primarily for its safety features. Say it with me. He exercises primarily for his health. Now you try explaining a choice. We use this software primarily for its speed. Let's add a few more. Consider specifically, which means in a detailed way. For example, I enjoy fruit, specifically apples and pears. Repeat after me. I like sports, specifically soccer and tennis. Next is namely, which introduces a precise explanation or list. For example, there is one problem, namely the lack of time. Try this. I have 2 hobbies, namely painting and reading. Now, part 5, connectors for expressing opinion and stance. Being able to express how you think and what you believe is crucial. These phrases help you introduce your opinion in a way that sounds confident yet polite or acknowledge the validity of other views. First, let's look at as far as I'm concerned. This is a strong personal phrase used to state your opinion clearly, meaning in my opinion or from my perspective. It emphasizes your subjective view. A teacher's note is to use this when you want to limit your statement to your own perspective and not imply it is a universal truth. For example, as far as I'm concerned, this is the best restaurant in town. Let's practice. As far as I'm concerned, summer is the best season. Now you try giving a view on a movie. As far as I'm concerned, the ending was surprising. Next up is from my standpoint. This phrase is slightly more formal and professional, meaning from my point of view or based on my position. And it is great for workplace discussions where you want to sound objective but personal. For instance, from my standpoint, the merger is a good idea. Say it with me. From my standpoint, the customer is always right. Now you try giving an opinion on a design. From my standpoint, the blue color looks better. Then if you ask me, this is a casual, conversational way to offer your opinion, inviting the listener to consider your personal take, often used among friends. For example, if you ask me, we should leave early. Repeat after me. The movie was boring if you ask me. Now you try giving advice. It's too expensive if you ask me. Moving on. I would argue that this is an excellent phrase for debates or serious discussions. Introducing your opinion, not just as a feeling, but as an argument that you can support with logic. For instance, I would argue that experience is more important than education. Let's try this. I would argue that travel is essential for personal growth. Now you try stating an argument about health. I would argue that sugar is the main cause of obesity. Next, I'm convinced that this phrase expresses a very strong belief or certainty, showing that your mind is made up and you are firm in your opinion. For example, I'm convinced that we made the right choice. Say it with me. I'm convinced that hard work always pays off. Now you try expressing a belief about the future. I'm convinced that AI will change our lives. Then it seems to me that this is a more tentative, humble way to express an opinion, suggesting you are observing and interpreting rather than stating an absolute fact. It is polite and thoughtful. For instance, it seems to me that the problem is getting worse. Repeat after me. It seems to me that prices are going up. Now you try giving a polite observation. It seems to me that we need more time. Another useful phrase is I am inclined to believe. This is a sophisticated way to say you are leaning towards a certain opinion or conclusion, but you aren't 100% closed off to other ideas, sounding open-minded yet logical. For example, I am inclined to believe his story. Let's practice. I am inclined to believe that he acted in good faith. Now you try giving a tentative opinion. I am inclined to believe that the policy will help. Next, admittedly. This is a great word for concession, meaning you accept or agree that something is true. Often, before presenting a counterargument, it shows you are fair and reasonable. For example, Admittedly, the car is expensive. However, it is worth the price. Say it with me. Admittedly, the task is difficult, but we can do it. Now, you try. Conceding a point. Admittedly, he is talented, but he is also arrogant. Finally, for this group, granted. Similar to admittedly, this word is used to admit a truth before moving to a contrasting point, meaning it is true that it is very useful in debate. For instance, granted it is raining, but we can still go out. Repeat after me. Granted, the plan is risky, but the potential profit is high. Now you try. Conceding a detail. Granted, the room is small, but it is cozy. Let's expand the opinion section further. Consider from my perspective, which is similar to standpoint. For example, from my perspective, we need to wait. Try this. From my perspective, the risk is too high. Next is in my estimation, which is formal and thoughtful. For example, in my estimation, this will take 10 years. Say it with me. In my estimation, he is the best player. Then to my mind, this is a bit old-fashioned, but very polite. For example, to my mind, that is the wrong choice. Repeat after me. To my mind, blue is the best color. Finally, Part 6, Connectors for Generalizing. And concluding, we have reached our final category. These phrases are designed to help you make broad statements based on specific facts or to bring your thoughts to a smooth, professional close. First, consider in general. This phrase is used to describe what is true most of the time, allowing for some exceptions, meaning usually or as a whole. For example, in general, I prefer tea over coffee. Let's practice. In general, dogs are friendly animals. Now you try making a broad observation. In general, people want to be happy. Next, by and large. This idiomatic phrase is a friendly, slightly informal way to say on the whole or mostly, considering everything to give a general feeling. For instance, by and large, the event was a success. Say it with me. By and large, the feedback has been positive. Now you try summarizing a year. By and large, it was a good year. Then for the most part, this phrase is very similar to in general and means mostly or largely, highlighting that the majority of a situation fits the description. For example, the day was sunny for the most part. Repeat after me. The project is complete for the most part. Now you try describing a book. The story is realistic for the most part. Moving on. Typically, this adverb means usually, or under normal conditions, describing what happens in a standard situation and is very useful for setting expectations. For example, typically banks are closed on Sundays. Let's try this. Typically, winter is cold in this region. Now you try describing a process. Typically an interview lasts about 30 minutes. Next, broadly speaking. This phrase is used to make a general statement without getting into specific details, meaning in general terms, allowing you to make a summary statement. For instance, broadly speaking, the economy is improving. Say it with me. Broadly speaking, vegetables are healthy. Now you try. Making a general comment about culture. Broadly speaking, people in this country are very polite. Then at the end of the day, this is a very common conversational phrase used to state the most important fact or the final conclusion after everything else has been considered. Meaning when everything is taken into account, it cuts through the noise. For example, we have different opinions, but at the end of the day, we want the same result. Repeat after me. At the end of the day, it is your decision. Now you try. Summarizing a work situation. The details are important, but at the end of the day, we need to ship the product. Another useful phrase is to wrap things up. This is a friendly way to signal that you are finishing a discussion, a meeting, or a presentation, meaning to conclude, and is polite and prepares the listener. For instance, to wrap things up, let's review the main points. Let's practice. To wrap things up, does anyone have any questions? Now, you try. Ending a speech. To wrap things up, I hope you learned a lot today. Next, as a final note, this is a formal and clear way to introduce the very last point you want to make, giving it special importance as a closing thought. For example, as a final note, please remember to submit your reports. Say it with me. As a final note, safety is our top priority. Now you try. Ending in email. As a final note, we look forward to seeing you. Finally, for this set to bring it all together, this phrase is used to summarize all the points you have made and show how they relate to a single conclusion, acting as a great synthesis tool. For instance, we have discussed sales, marketing, and product quality. To bring it all together, our strategy focuses on the customer. Repeat after me. We analyze the data and the feedback. To bring it all together, we are moving in the right direction. Now, you try. Summarizing a lesson. We learned grammar and vocabulary. To bring it all together, practice is the key to fluency. Let's add a few concluding phrases. Consider all in all, which means everything considered. For example, all in all, it was a good trip. Say it with me. All in all, the team played well. Next is in short, which means briefly. For example, in short, we need more money. Try this. In short, the answer is no. Then ultimately, which means in the end or at the most basic level. For example, ultimately success depends on you. Repeat after me. Ultimately it is your choice. Congratulations. You have now mastered over 100 advanced English transition phrases that will truly elevate your communication. We have explored how to build ideas, compare similarities, explain consequences, illustrate points, express opinions with finesse, and bring it all together with strong conclusions. These are the marks of a fluent, sophisticated speaker. They are the tools that will help you tell better stories, win arguments, and connect with people on a deeper level. I want to leave you with one final pro tip for your journey. Mix and match. Do not use all these formal phrases in one sentence. If you say, furthermore, in light of the fact that from my standpoint, in general, you will sound robotic. The key to fluency is variety. Use a formal phrase like furthermore in an essay, but switch to plus or also in a chat with a friend. Your challenge for this week is to incorporate at least 5 of these phrases into your daily speech or writing. Whether you are writing an email, telling a story to a friend, or even talking to yourself in the mirror, force yourself to use phrases like speaking of which as a direct consequence or at the end of the day. The more you use them, the more natural they will become. Thank you so much for joining me for this extended masterclass at JBC English Learning Academy. If you enjoyed this lesson and found these 100+ phrases helpful, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with your fellow learners, and make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. I am Elena, and I am so proud of your dedication to learning. Keep practicing. Keep using these new tools, and I will see you in the next lesson. Bye for now.